I think I might have mentioned this in another episode. I saw an interview with Harrison Ford, and he was asked what advice he would give to young up-and-coming actors. And he said, just persist. He said, just
Hmm.
keep doing it, no matter how much you fail or how much might go wrong. Just keep doing it. Eventually, no matter what, you'll get recognized, and
Yeah,
someone will take notice of your work. And I think
right.
that's good advice for not just actors, but you know anybody involved in film. Just
Yeah.
persist. Just keep doing it. If it's your passion, just keep doing it. Um,
And he was someone that got Han Solo kind of later in his career, like in his mid 30s,
mhm.
sort of being around the Hollywood scene. He was doing, like some, movies, a World War II movie,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, Guns and Navarone, I think.
eventually yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I think he had like a bit part in Apocalypse Now, and
Yes.
like
Sorry. Yes, that's it. Yeah,
one
Apocalypse Now.
one scene in there. But I think that was after actually Star Wars. But
Mhm.
definitely, and then eventually Indiana Jones. I mean, come on, how could you go wrong with Indiana Jones?
That's right.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Harrison Ford, he's the man. Switching gears, I want to hear more about Ronnie's Quest. I want to hear more about your feature. Can you tell us a bit more about Ronnie's Quest? Like, what was the inspiration? What was the journey like to get it made? How did you get it
Uh,
made? Fill us in.
it was I was in Vancouver for about like I guess like 3, 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and working the shows, and I accumulated some network and some money, and I said, okay, you know what? Let me finally get this. Let me get this one off. This feature that I know I could do. I know I could shoot a feature. I know I can keep it consistent and uh, and write a story. So basically, I kind of just took the elements around me that were available at the time, right? Like BC is full of beautiful nature. So I'm like, okay, I have a lot of kind of free parks that I can shoot in, like areas that I know I can get easy access to.
Mm-hmm.
And because Vancouver was such a film-friendly environment to shoot in, any places that I did book, like motels, for a scene. We shot at Britannia Mine, which is this mine that's outside of like it's like maybe like a half hour outside of Squamish in North Vancouver. That is sort of like a museum, right? It was like an old mill, but that was sort of the location for the big climax. I knew I could shoot there. We shot on a ferry that I had booked like 6 months ahead of time and got all the clearances for and this and that. And we shot in like an Airbnb mansion out in North Vancouver. So I knew I could get, for me, the location is like another character. So as long as I got like nice locations,
Mm-hmm.
then the cinematographers, the DP's work is kind of like half done there. And so I got these locations. I knew I could get them. Let me write a story around it, and with the actors that I had available, let me kind of tailor a script to kind of fit their personality so that I can. It's an easier time for me to direct while I'm managing these other things, and that's kind of how it came to be. I always wanted to do like a road trip movie, so the film is sort of like road trippy. I wanted to mix in some elements of conspiracy. The villain kind of holds this kind of James Bond villain arc where she's doing like all these like manipulating world governments to kind of she manipulates the weather is her big like superpower. And so she's kind of
All right.
like I was listening to a lot of Alex Jones at that time and his wild conspiracies, and I'm like, shit, like this sounds like a supervillain character. Let me try and manipulating the weather. I mean, how is that even possible? So I
Yeah, I think a lot of people are asking
gave
themselves that right now.
right? Like it's just crazy. Like, yeah, and also one of the biggest things that she does is again this sort of like medicine that turns people into zombies. And it was going to be like, she says it in the movie. I wrote it in the script. It was like, once my flu tech hits the market, everyone's going to turn into raging maniacs. And this was before COVID, and I was kind of like seeing where the alignment was going. And so, there was that kind of like entrepreneurial villainry that this character had. So I kind of threw in a lot of, she kind of holds a lot of the right wing conspiracies in her character.
Yeah.
And the others, I had a transgender actress who was in the middle of transitioning. So I plugged that character in. I plugged in sort of a hood rat. That's Ronnie, who comes from like the streets. And, it's like, okay, cool, I can have that character. And then sort of the amoral character who's sort of in the middle, in between, generic shy girl who doesn't want to get involved in what's going on, but is dragged along this adventure. And so it was just kind of tailored to these personalities and to the environment that I was in. And we shot it over two blocks. It was like a winter block and a summer block. And the winter block was a lot of the interiors, shot a
Hmm.
lot of the interiors there. And then the summer block was all the kind of road trip stuff. And then eventually pieced it together, and then released it on Amazon and
Amazon.ca or .com?
.com
Dot .com.
.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even though it's a Canadian film, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what
Yeah.
it was with the censor, but yeah, and it picked up a few awards on the festival circuit, for
Fantastic.
on in Toronto and in BC.
Congrats.
So it picked up a few things. And yeah, there's just like some scenes in there that I love that are kind of like what I like. I like gangster movies. I like crime. I like sort of villains with a like that James Bond kind of villain, like like a mastermind of like different things, and it all falls apart.
Hmm.
Just fun lead characters that are kind of like buddy cop almost, they're like two opposites that
Yeah.
kind of contrast each other. So yeah, the kind of ensemble cast that I like shooting. Yeah, so it was an action-packed comedy that I think the world needs sometimes more dumb comedies, and this was definitely up that lane. It was just like a dumb action comedy with a lot of jokes that you would maybe hear in a film in the 2000s or something.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so it was a good time.
Our Canadian sense of humor, Canadian sensibilities need to be in more films. Don't I mean you see that there's a lot of successful comedic actors come from Canada,
Yeah,
but I would love to see a lot of what Canadian filmmakers can to bring to the cinematic landscape with our sensibilities and our humor. Has it? You mentioned that it is on Amazon. You got it on the streaming station. Has it been profitable for you?
not so much. I
Yeah.
mean, it picks up, like I get like a monthly check on whatever it picks up on. I think the most it made in a month was like, $20 on rentals, something
Okay.
like that. So for me it was, I had the extra cash to do it, and I
Hmm.
had the team to do it, and it was sort of in the zeitgeist of that period that I was in, where for 10 years, for what felt like 10 years, but when yeah, because I jumped in the film industry scene in 2011 as a grip trainee in Winnipeg. So it was sort of like an accumulation of what I'd been doing for about 9 of those years.
Hmm.
And finally, I got to release like start the era, end the era of the 2010s with the indie feature that kind of encapsulated everything I'd learned up to that point. And here it is, like here's sort of like the master copy of that. It's like
Right.
everything that I've been doing independently, and the knowledge I'd gained, here it is in one film in this one time. And I had the elements and the right people to pull it off. I probably put in 20K into the movie,
Nice.
right? Like it wasn't like I was blowing like 50K or something like that, but it
Hmm.
was definitely it was like a season of Supergirl, let's put it, like half the
Yeah.
season there. So, and luckily I had some sponsors with the gear, so it was mainly paying for locations. That was the biggest bill, was
Okay.
locations. And the actors wanted to do it. They trusted me, and they had some of their best work, I think, for a lot of them, some of their kind of some good cinematic work. And yeah, so profitable maybe in different ways, not so much the
Okay.
monetary way,
Right.
but definitely in terms of me, just my own ability and confidence and title of a filmmaker. I said, you know what, I got it done,
Yeah.
and I think it's pretty damn good.
Awesome.
And again, it sort of an accumulation of everything I've been doing up to that point.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. How did you go about getting it out there? How did you go getting it about getting it on Amazon.com?
It was kind of simple, it just
Okay.
Amazon, they just really require the captions and
Okay.
like title cards or face cards for their when you hover over a movie and you see like the poster and whatever.
Right.
So, getting a graphic designer to design those and get them the right size. I was the editor on the project actually, so I was the one doing the editing. I stitched it together to the way that I wanted it. I started out as an editor actually out in like junior high school and, projects like that. So I was kind of always with a editor mindset when I'm
Mm,
making these films.
I know what you mean.
And so definitely, it took a while, but finally we got it out there. And I wanted to do like a big like premiere at like a local theater, but COVID hit and it kind of sunk the
Mm,
whole ship.
mm,
So I couldn't do it the way that I wanted to do it with a spectacle and have folks and do all that stuff. But definitely, in the future, who knows, do a re-release with another thing, a double feature, and
right on.
and make up for it. It's a good kind of showcase of where I was at that time,
Hmm.
2019, before everything hit the fan, sort of in accumulation again of everything I've been doing up to that point. So,
I
but
hear you.
now the mindset is in different areas, and I want to do different things, and I have other things I want to get going. So.
You said that you've been involved in a few Hallmark productions and things like that. How did you get involved with those?
Well, I guess just being a guild member,
Okay.
like being a Directors Guild member, they sign signatories to those productions. A lot of folks like to joke and say, hey, when they're not doing the TV series, they go down to the hallmarks and they're kind of like always back there. And for me, I kind of like them because they're fun, they're simple.
Mm,
Everybody wants to have a good time, and you meet a lot of folks that are kind of like just getting going. So you meet a lot of folks that later, you see them if you and they're like a DP or a director or somewhere in a higher category. And you're like, shoot, like I remember you were the PA on that Hallmark, and now you're a DP on this show. So you
mm-hmm,
kind of see the evolution of people. But
mm-hmm,
definitely, yeah, they're a good time. They're a fun time. You
mm-hmm.
build good connections with crew there. Simple shows, but good ways to kind of build the structure for larger productions.
I'm curious about how one becomes a DGI, sorry, a DGC guild member. The picture that you're painting for in your personal experience from what I'm gathering is you kind of went out to an area that was rich with opportunities, got the experience, and then from that experience you were able to apply and become a member. Is that how it kind of how one would go about doing it?
Yeah, I think at the time it was so busy that yeah, you have to collect days being on set of
Right.
a union production. So you become a permit member or a permittee. And so you're essentially paying at the time it was like $20 a day just to be a permit member of the guild. And then eventually you collect enough days, 30, it might be 50 days to just now you're a logbook holder, or I guess here in the East they have the gap program where you have to get a certain amount of days in a certain time frame, which is crazy because given the market flux, it's like you're never guaranteed 3 shows and 100 or so days that they expect you to get in a year. You
Right.
know, it might take you two years to get there in today's market. So definitely, it was you collect the days, so you eventually become like a permit member, and eventually you get more days, and then you become an associate, and then eventually, you typically jump up in category, and you become a full member, and you have voting rights, and you're able to vote during the caucus meetings and things like this, and
Hmm.
join in on their training programs and stuff like that. The expectation that the guild is going to find you work is still like very rare.
Oh,
It's still
really?
up to the individual to network and find their connections and find their people and find the work yourself.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
yeah, so that kind of thought that, oh yeah, there's going to be someone at the front desk who's going to hand you a slip and say, okay, now you're off to this show in some
Right.
place. No,
Doesn't
it
work
doesn't
that way.
happen. It's like no,
Uh,
so some people, a lot of the senior members kind of complain about that. They're like, well, the guild never really helps me out. They don't help me find work and da 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 da. And yeah, I mean, they're kind of just an agent body that's kind of signed on to a production company, basically saying you have these trained professionals on your set, and these are the expectations as per union, what they're expecting to get and
right.
comply with. And that's sort of where they kind of draw the line. And from there, it's up to you to, manage yourself and manage the team and kind of play by the rules
Hmm.
and get the show off the ground.
Yeah. But has it opened up opportunities for you? Like, has it been beneficial to be a guild member?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been good in the sense that if there's other productions that come in or they check my resume or my credits and they're, oh, you've been on these shows, then, I'll have a higher chance of jumping onto another show and they
Hmm.
kind of expect me to know what I'm doing. And I
Right.
do. And so, I'm a working professional in that sense. And so I'm able to kind of carry that knowledge from production to production. Yeah, it's been beneficial for sure. I think in any kind of arena in life, you want to play with the big boys. You want to play in a big arena,
Hmm.
and so it's like you want to try and aspire for that highest goal. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, well, maybe there's another shift that you can take to get there, or there's another shift. Maybe life will just take you on a shift that you never expected,
Yeah.
but at least you tried, right? Like at least you tried to go there and aspire for greatness,
Hmm.
and then you kind of shift with the ebb and flow that life throws at you, because you
Hmm.
just never know, right? Where it's going to take you.
If anyone listening is interested, Michelle Michaels is head of the Guild Apprenticeship Program here in the region. So she can, if you look her up, she can probably give you some information if you're all interested in GGC membership. Obviously, this is 613 Creatives. It's about local filmmakers. So I like to keep things related to film, but I would be amiss to not mention and not at least have you touch on some of the other creative stuff that you've been involved in. I'd like you to fill us in a bit on some of these books that you've self-published, like World War B and Saturn's Gate. Can you can you fill us in on what they're about
Can you see
and
that?
what the inspiration
Is
was
it
there? Oh,
is
there
it
you go.
blurry? Can you see that?
Oh no,
This is
actually,
World War B.
okay.
It's a little bit blurry, I think, because my screen, but definitely like
Uh,
it's my first book that I published with an illustrator in BC,
okay.
Lena Chen. We released it in 2021, and it's essentially a war story. It's kind of like George Orwell's 1984 is what I like to compare it to, in the
Hmm.
sense that it's about the protagonists are two bees that live in this hive, this totalitarian hive that's ruled by the queen and her cabinet. and they represent the 1%, and the workers represent the 99%. I wrote it in the era of that Bernie Sanders, even further back, that tent city revolt that happened in 2011. That's sort of when the idea
Oh, okay.
originated
Right.
from. And so slowly I was just sketching, the plot points and the characters, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually found the story and the narrative. And so, yeah, it becomes this sort of like a Bug's Life adventure of, what is democracy? What is the perfect society that isn't this sort of fascist hive? And but all that stuff kind of breaks down into a war, into world war, and really that's kind of the crux of it. It's you know this gray zone of two extremes, these two extremes, and maybe neither are the answer. Maybe it lies somewhere in the middle, and so it becomes that kind of debate in the story. Phil, there's some action pieces in there, and there's some philosophical moments in there, and the
Mm-hmm.
one character, the lead character, he's a bard. I try and tailor my stories into kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of Final Fantasy sort of realm,
Nice.
in the sense that I like the characters to have like a job class, and
Mm-hmm.
so the main character, his job class is a bard, and his uh the narration in the story by him, it's all done in hexameter poetry. So an AA, BB, CC, DD kind of rhyme scheme. And
Oh, okay.
and so that's how you read his portion of the dialogue, and everyone else is sort of answering to that. And so you have a princess who's revolting against her queen mother, and she's raising a group of rebels, ant militias, to take over the hive and reclaim the crown. And the protagonists kind of fall into this plot of revolt. And I had a British friend of mine. I told him the premise and everything, and he's like, "What? You can't abolish the queen? That's hearsay. That's crazy."
In
I'm like, "It's
Britain,
just a
perhaps.
fiction story in Britain. Yeah, it's just a fictional story. It's about bees. Don't worry, I'm not, trying to start anything. It's just a fictional account about a queen,
Mm-hmm.
a queen bee." And then my most recent work here, Saturn's Gate. It's a book on ancient Rome and the Colosseum,
Oh,
and you
cool.
can kind of see there like character title cards. Again, like when you're playing a video game in the 90s, they used to have those instruction manuals with the character profiles in the beginning.
Yep.
And so I kind of laid out that template there. And so it's a group of high school students that time travel back to ancient Rome and have to fight their way out of the Colosseum to return there to modern America. But they bring all their high school problems with them. So there's love triangles, there's peer bullying, and you
Mm.
have the protagonist who works underneath the Colosseum floor.
Mm-hmm.
They have that basement underneath the Colosseum. They in 2010 in Italy, in Rome, they uncovered all that basement floor, and they found out, oh yeah, they used to wrangle animals and gladiators, and they would hold them backstage essentially and raise them up to the platform. And so, I was so fascinated by that because I'm an assistant director, production assistant. So it's like that's kind of like what I would be doing in that era, essentially was wrangling cast or wrangling gladiators and animals, have them wait backstage. Okay, yeah, it's time. Okay, the horns are playing. Okay, go
Go,
upstage.
go,
It's time to
go.
go die. Yeah. So like I was fascinated with that. That was sort of the beginning of the fascination. So, reading books on ancient Latin writers that wrote about the Colosseum. So, there's a lot of research that went into this book,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of coming up with the schedule, because it was like these ancient writers, they wrote these details about the Colosseum, how at, mid morning, there would be the beast hunts that would start. So there it'd be like a circus, a parade of the animals around the arena. And the early bird crowd would come in and file in, and they'd watch these exotic animals from Africa, taken from different parts of Europe. And so they would show that as like a showcase, like these are the presentations of animals that we're going to show you later in the show. By noon hour, that's when the executions would happen. So any criminals, uh,
Okay.
there'd be the Christians, right? Like they'd be hung, they'd be put on the cross and burned, the burning crucifixions, and and so and they would be mauled by animals as well. So you'd have like a story, an ancient retelling of a story, and then at the end of it, a bear would maul you to death, and the crowd would go wild. And then for the evening, for the main events, for the afternoon, that's when the gladiators would come out, and that was the main
Mm,
attraction, right? And the seats
right.
would fill, and everyone would be watching. So it was really like going to like a football game today, and it's like a family event, right? Like so, it was like a family event back then. Again, reading into these ancient writers and how they would have posters to advertise gladiator fights, sort of like what you would see with the UFC,
Hmm.
mixed martial arts today. They would have woodcut figurines of famous fighters that would be in the arena, and they would
Oh, wow.
and woodcutters, craftsmen would chisel like woodcut dolls of a gladiator. They would have halftime showcases, like halftime shows where jugglers would come out, and dwarfs would be like doing funny acts. The women, when the women would fight, when they were prosecuted for something, they would put helmets on their heads and swords, and they would parade them in the arena naked, and they would have these dwarf soldiers run out, and so you got these naked women with helmets on their heads blindly swinging at dwarfs, and the
Wow.
crowd would go nuts. uh so it was a twisted circus, and so
Hmm.
I wanted to capture that feeling in this book, and I think I did. And you kind of the characters sort of represent different again job classes of ancient Roman life. You have your soldier, you have your squire, who works beneath the basement in the basement floor. You have the gladiatrix, the female gladiator, who's the sister of the protagonist, who's like using ancient. She uses like martial arts from the future, and she implements them in the past, so
Oh,
she
wow.
becomes world famous, or arena famous.
Nice.
And you have another mixed batch of characters that kind of round out this ensemble cast of characters that highlight daily Roman life and sort of the craziness of the arena.
Hmm.
So it's a fun book. They're both available on Amazon. I'll send you the link
Yes, please
for
do.
anyone interested. And then continuing on the path to finishing the third release, which I have in the tuck right now.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Hopefully for next year, I'll have everything all put together with the graphic designer and the illustrator and the editor. So yeah, it's a departure from screenwriting, because when I began screenwriting in like 2011, in that time, it was like, okay, I'm gonna try and not write a novel. I'm just gonna write like two lines and move on and get to the dialogue. And then, okay, come back to description, two lines, three splashes of description, and move on. I'm not gonna write like half a page of like story elements and what I'm thinking, who the characters are and how they're feeling, because that stuff doesn't matter when you're writing a screenplay for the most part, because the audience doesn't see that. They see it as the story develops and as the character develops.
Hmm.
Those feelings and emotions is good for the actor that's reading it, but when you're just a reader that wants to get through a script, you don't want to be bogged down by a page of this person came from here, and this is how he felt there, and now he's in this moment here, and this is how
Mm-hmm.
he cares. It's like just get to the immediate action, because when you're on the set and you're going off the script, all that stuff isn't gonna matter. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I used to write very early on about like, this character starts on the chair, and then he moves to the shelf, and from the shelf, now the camera pushes in on him, and then from the shelf, he's gonna walk to the kitchen, and then at the kitchen, he's gonna bend down and open a drawer. Some of that stuff is okay, but like it's just too much. And then you get to the set, and you're like, none of this stuff is here. Like, what am I working? I'm working with a chair and a shelf. Okay, so let's build it around there. So I think over the years I've learned to streamline a lot of the screenwriting,
Mm-hmm.
which, for me, I like to write. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, I really want to get that itch off of like, I want to do something with description and describe worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna challenge myself and write a novel and go there. And it's taken years, a decade to just get the first one off. But that
Mm-hmm.
was a decade of just writing and rewriting and editing and sending it off to a proofreader and a copy editor and getting it back and rewriting and more. So it's taken years to get just the first one off. And I
Yeah.
think, again, getting that first one off, you start to develop, okay, now how can I make the second one, the third one easier, more efficient? What did I learn in that process to get it more efficient? But I think definitely, yeah, just taking those first steps of action just to do it, just to do that first one, I think is important
Mm-hmm.
to build that confidence. And but yeah, total departure from screenwriting. I think they're two different beasts
Yeah.
entirely, and a challenge in their own respects.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I've been lucky enough to kind of handle both. But I blame my left hand. I'm a southpaw, so definitely that's kind of either working against me or working in my favor. I'm not too sure, but you know,
Now you said that your film work has kind of influenced the books. Have the books influenced your film work at all?
aside from hopefully one day getting them made into movies,
Hmm, that'd be cool.
yeah, I think like when nowadays when I'm writing the scripts, I've always had callbacks and like setups and things like that, like foreshadow, just kind of literary
Okay.
devices that kind of you implement in the script. But now I notice it more. It's definitely like something that I look out for when I'm reading actually other people's scripts. Is there a setup? Is there something that kind of sets off the chain of events that you see the repercussions for, so that when you get to the end of the third act or whatever act, is there a punchline? Is there something that, has been built and layered to, achieve the theme of what is being said? And so I think
Mm-hmm.
definitely like writing books and reading books for sure, because you're building on a series of events and a series of words and structures that eventually has a satisfying conclusion. And so I've definitely been a lot more, critical of my friends. Right? It's such a Virgo thing to do. Like I'm so critical of my friends, what they do and stuff. But I want them to have like the best outcome, right? I want them to have the best work. And if they're kind of still at a level of writing where you know there is no setup, where the setup is a little off and the punchline is off, and the middle act is there's no action or climax going on, then I have to call it out
Mm-hmm.
and say, like, I think you could structure this a little bit better. I think this callback here is a good way to set you up earlier there. And so it's definitely helped me in my reading, in my writing, in my analysis of scripts. Not that I'm perfect or anything, but it's just helped me focus in on those beats a lot more. Whereas before, maybe I would have been like, "Oh yeah, no, this is great. This is perfect. No, I think it works." and then you get down to it into the weeds of things, and you're like, wait a minute, why is this working again? Like, how did we green like this? Like, this makes no sense.
What's the future hold for you? What have you got on your docket? And any plans for another feature or anything like that?
Yeah, that's the next one. I definitely want to get my second one off the ground. I have two scripts that I'm kind of juggling right now that are feature length that I've written. So I'm going through the process of having producer and DPs kind of look at it and seeing, okay, like yeah, we can kind of work we can kind of do this. Hopefully one in Ottawa and one I'm looking at in Winnipeg. So I'm kind of, juggling the two.
Nice.
But so definitely, and they're both separate. Like, I've kind of written them to kind of tailor to their environment. So yeah, just kind of pushing that, building a team around that, building an infrastructure around that is the next push. I never let those kind of things set me back in terms of the creative process and getting them off the ground. If it takes a couple years to get it off the ground, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I had my fallback. I think to the point that you were saying about investing every waking hour in the filmmaking process, I think is true.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that taking up hobbies and other interests is also a good way to kind of hone in on your filmmaker, creative artist eye
Absolutely.
and observing life and experiencing life and kind of those things actually help in the writing process as well because then
Mm-hmm.
you start seeing characters in a different way or how to approach a character in a different light
Yeah. It's where a
and
lot of ideas come
strings
from.
of a lot of ideas. I
Yeah.
mean, they have a lot of my best ideas come from other people telling me stories about their life, and I'm like, shit, that's crazy. How- Can I put that in a story, in a short story? And actually, did the Digi60 project Damage Deposit is that? It's a story that a friend told me, and I said, damn,
Oh
I gotta
wow.
plug this into a script, and so that's what I did. So definitely, getting gathering stories from other people and hearing them out. Sitting down, reading, writing, I think is also important as well. Even as an
Mm-hmm.
actor, creative, I think that kind of there's a sort of like self therapy in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've worked those jobs that the jobs that I'm like, I hate what I'm doing. Ah, damn it, why am I doing this? Feels like volunteer work whenever I show up here. Like I don't even care if I get paid or not, because I just don't like being here. And so definitely I've sat, at coffee shops or wherever and just written about, what I'm going through, right? And hopefully, down the line, I can kind of tap into that or utilize that as a structure for a story. But I think, that's true to any kind of artist who is tapped into their emotions and can kind of draw from those life experiences and not be bogged down by it, but draw from it, craft something out of it,
Mm-hmm.
create something, collaborate on it, and also being able to kind of be open to other ideas and because sometimes you run into a project and it's like this thing happened to me in my life and everything that's being said has to go this way. There's no way it cannot go this way. So kind of being open to the idea of, changing a story to kind of fit the environment that you're in and this and that. So, keep the
Mm-hmm.
pen busy
Right. Right. Right.
and because who knows where that could lead, right? Like it could lead into a short story, it could lead into a poetry, it could lead into a novel, it could,
Mm-hmm.
the different branches, and then a screenwriting thing, and then you're making it a short film or a feature. So definitely, I keep the pen busy, and if I'm not
Awesome.
writing, then I'm editing, and if I'm not editing, then I'm writing. So keeping that alive. So yeah, I'll have another book release hopefully next year, end of next year. I'm planning, and
Fantastic.
as I'm sort of behind the scenes getting other projects off the ground
Mm-hmm.
and in short stories and things like this. So yeah, and stay competitive,
Hmm.
with the other filmmakers and trying to get something off the ground and I like the festival competitions is based on themes and things like this just trying to stay up to date with what's going on for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an old actor friend of mine. He was in the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead. He was in Diary of the Dead. He worked with people like Russell Crowe and on Cinderella Man and things like that. He was
Mm,
a character actor, and he said to me one time, he said, "You can't consider yourself a creator unless you're constantly creating. If you're constantly creating, if
mhm.
you're constantly in it, then you can consider yourself an artist, or in this case, a filmmaker." Did your folks, when they named you, did they say, "Oh, this is when he's going to be born, so we'll just put that name on there"? It can't be coincidence.
No, you know what? It's a pen name. It
Oh,
is my pen name.
oh, okay.
It's my pen name that I gave myself when I was 19, when I
Ah,
was taking this journey. I said, okay, it's this is the way I'm gonna go.
nice,
And so it was the first poetry open mic thing I ever did was a Virgo, under Virgo Velasquez. And really,
nice.
it emphasizes the last name, because the last name for me is a name that carries a lot of weight,
Hmm.
not only from an immediate family sense, but also just like a legacy sense, in the sense that Velasquez was a very famous painter in Spain,
Oh, right.
1600s. And he's somebody, as a painter I've studied. Even as a teenager, I studied his like, I looked at his works and said, huh, the way he's using shadows and kind of naturalistic, realistic lighting and things like this. It's how do you capture that in a frame?
Hmm.
And some of the things that he would do, frames within frames, or him looking at the audience and the audience looking in, and who's looking at who. So it's that breaking
Hmm.
that fourth wall. So, definitely those kind of brushstrokes I like to add into the style. My middle name is Omar, so this is a lot of the time in Winnipeg. A lot of folks call me that.
Okay.
My parents call me that. And but Virgo, top secret, Virgo is the pen name.
I
And
see.
mainly because it's the energy that, yeah, it's true, it's the energy that I connect with the most. Up until I was 19, I connected a lot with that energy because I felt the most connected to it. And I'm on the cusp, between Libra and Virgo, September 22nd. So I made it a point that I associate with the Virgos and not the Libras. Libras are
Yeah.
great, but I like the Virgos. And
I hear you. Good
but
choice. I would imagine, like, if you ever started like a big studio that was helping to produce films for
mm,
other filmmakers. I've got an idea for a studio name for you. V
yeah,
squared. Sorry,
I like it.
V squared Studios, because it's VV, right? V squared.
I like
Just
it.
just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
I like
Keep
it.
pinning that one, and have a look at some of the other episodes of the podcast as well, because there's some other. Obviously, there's a lot of prolific filmmakers that I've interviewed, and some of them have got some features in the works, and I'm sort of talking with them as well, and seeing the kinds of things that we can come up with. And that's the whole purpose of this, right? Like, I want 613 creatives to, I mean, not only is it a great way to get to know filmmakers and network for my own purposes, but I mean, I want the main purpose is to get everybody to know each other. And because I
Mhm.
think, like, the film community, especially in the Ottawa region, which I'm looking to promote, it's strong. There's strength in numbers, right? I mean, we're
Yeah,
stronger together, get to know each other, and you can find resources and creative people and creative perspectives that you may not have known existed. So I love Kino, I love Digi 60. I love all the different communities that have
Monster Pool.
Monster Pool. Did you have a film in Monster Pool?
Not this year. I
Okay.
attended some great
Yeah.
films. Oh man, some hilarious films too.
Oh, yes.
But another V squared with Vincent Valentino.
Ah, oh, yeah.
Uh,
Something
right,
about
like the
that
pillar.
VV. It's like you guys are all like artists, man.
We've come together. We've come together.
That's right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, a lot of great films there too. And I love going going to them. I love the indie scene out here in Ottawa because people they promote it and they like talking about it and they
Mm-hmm.
will jump on each other's projects
Mm-hmm.
and get excited for each other's projects too. So I'm definitely of that ilk. So definitely it's a good growing scene for sure.
Speaking of Monster Pool, which one was it? Oh, Frankencock.
Oh,
That one caught me off guard.
that was crazy. Was that not crazy? That
No.
one was like that was wild. But I loved it. I wish I could talk to the filmmaker about it because it turned into the thing almost, right? Like it turned into
Hmm.
like this animatronic,
Yeah.
like Franken penis that was like gave uh vibes of the thing. And I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
this is like genius. This is awesome. Like I wasn't expecting the turn like that. And it was
Mhm.
gross out. I was grossed out.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's fantastic because it's the quote unquote controversial stuff like that that gets you noticed, right? I mean, the laughs that
Yeah.
that film got. But yeah,
Oh my
there's
God.
so many great films at Monster Pool, and
Yeah.
I would highly recommend checking out Vincent's podcast as well. He was episode 10. I made
Oh,
sure, yeah.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, we go over Monster Pool a fair bit, but yeah, I mean, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really done amazing things for the film community
A
in the
pillar for
region.
sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks so much, Virgo, for being part of the show.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for sharing your stories. I've found some inspiration from them for sure. Some tidbits that I'll be keeping with me and incorporating into my process as a filmmaker. I hope the listeners have as well.
Yeah, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And for sure, we'll do something in the future, Dan. And yeah, man, we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks to our viewers for joining us. Be sure to share this with your fellow filmmakers, like and subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And we will see you in the future.